I would say if there was anything that I would do specifically, would be to champion that those dollars actually do go to education, because there is nothing in that piece of legislation that says that it will go to education. It's all going to go into the general fund, and as we've seen in the past, that can be spent any way that the legislature wants it to.
Thank you.
Okay, the follow-up question on the same subject to you, Yvonne, is if Measure 97 fails, what actions would you take?
What actions would I take in regard to the measure, or I guess
Well,
Mr. Grunke, your question, would you like to help her out with?
If Measure 97 is not approved,
yeah.
what actions will you take as a legislator? What will you do?
To deal with?
We have a huge deficit in the budget for next year.
Right.
What are you going to do if 97 doesn't pass?
Makes sense.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. So I have spent probably the last 15 years working on really tight budgets. I worked for a nonprofit organization. I'm a small business owner, and I work on the school board. I know that there is a lot of waste that happens in our legislature. I plan on evaluating every single dollar that I can as a legislator and making sure that we're being efficient with the dollars that we have. We need to do some audits. We have audits in our departments in our state legislature that haven't been audited in 20 years. We have $500 million that has gone to two specific projects that we don't really know, that we never felt the effects of that $500 million being taken out of other budgets. So I think that there is a lot of waste, and I plan on working quite diligently on finding that and tightening up our budgets.
Thank you.
okay. Mark, same two questions. If Measure 97 passes, what actions would you take and why, and would you attempt to modify it in any way?
What actions would I take? Yes. First of all, we want to make sure that all the funds are dedicated to both education, social services, and senior services. What actions or corrections I would make are, as I already know, and I've already been speaking with many legislators currently in the House, is that we're going to have to make some legislative fixes, which include making sure that PGE and Northwest Natural Gas are not part of this equation, because if we're talking about it hitting our bottom line, it's going to hit our bottom line. So those will be some legislative fixes that can be approved, and I'm sure there's going to be many people at the table that would be willing to make those adjustments. So if it passes, those are the fixes that we're going to have to take a look at. There's going to be some issues that we need to take care of, including pharmaceuticals. So there's going to be a lot of people coming to the table if it passes, not only figure out where they want to throw the money to, but we got to make sure that the funds go to education and social services. But we'll also make sure we don't have any negative effects on our seniors and our families.
Thank you.
Okay, and if Measure 97 fails, what actions would you take?
Measure 97 fails, we have a $1.4 billion deficit that we're going to have to fix. And there's if you think about $1.4 billion, it's just the deficit. If we have 10% waste, that's still 1.4 billion. So if we can find some waste, but we're going to have to do some tightening of our, rolling up our sleeves and getting our partners together to figure out where can we cut, where can we gain. I do think that the state of Oregon needs some tax reform, some serious tax reform, and if Measure 97 passes, that is the voters' decision and request that we make things happen. If it doesn't pass, it's our full notice that we need to make some tax reform and get our state budget into condition.
Thank you. Linda?
Good evening. And you can tell me if I'm not close enough to the mic. Mark, the first question will be for you. Mental health is a huge underfunded problem across the county. How will you work to restore funding for the mentally ill in this district and around the state?
That's a great question, and it's amazing. I've knocked on thousands of doors, and it's ironic this question comes up to this today. On Saturday, I was speaking with a woman that is an adult foster care provider, and that her mental health care budget was cut. She has folks that have both, they're both, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, they both have the bipolar disorders and those types of things, where she has helped them get out of state institutions and by alleviating some of their medications, getting them the care they need. And actually, they become really productive citizens in our community. They actually volunteer. But she says this last year, her budget was cut, period. And so she's not able to help and bring on those citizens that desperately need those services. So to me, when we talk about taking care of our families and our communities, there's many families and many minorities that need our services. So I will fight to champion to make sure that that budget is funded so that we can care for our families the way we really need to.
Thank you.
Is there a follow-up?
Yvonne, the same question. How will you work to restore funding for the mentally ill in this district and around the state?
Well, I'm sorry, can you repeat it just a little louder?
Sure, let me get closer. How will you work to restore funding for the mentally ill in this district and around the state?
Well, I think we have to really look at mental health covers a whole variety of different types of issues. To restore funding is, I mean, we've seen the cuts of it. I think we have to be really clear on making sure that we have efficient services. I've been up to the Safe Place up in Oregon City. It's a combination of Clackamas Women's Services, the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, mental health services. It's a very efficient model where someone who's in distress can go and they have basically a one-stop shopping for all of their needs. Those type of programs are very efficient, and that's the kind of programs that we need. We need to bring our community members and our services together to be efficient with what we've got.
Okay, next question is to Yvonne. Homeless issues are escalating in our area as well as other places in Clackamas County. How do you intend to help our communities help the homeless?
The homeless issue has a myriad of reasons why it is what it is, and I think there's a myriad number of solutions for it. Again, something like the Safe Place, where we have multiple services in one area that can help people transition. Most importantly, we need to be able to, there's two things. Short term, we need to be able to help them transition, whether they're coming out of incarceration or if they're coming out of hospitals, or whatever situation they're coming out of, we need to be able to provide transition services so that they aren't just dropped onto the street. The second piece of that is we need to have some long-term goals, and jobs and education help people in the long term. If we can catch them before they end up on the street, then with good education, good training, good skills, and provide the jobs, and we have a good economy where we've got jobs available for them to go into, hopefully we can prevent homelessness.
Mark, same question. How do you intend to help our communities help the homeless?
I would continue to help in the many ways that I've already been involved. I'm currently a board member of Northwest Family Services over here, and they could cover Clackamas County and Multnomah County and Washington County. But as part of that process, there's hundreds of homeless high school kids right now that we've actually helped them to make as part of my work on this board is making sure that we have the funding available so that they can have beds to sleep in. We try to actually help them get placement into homes of families that are supportive. But also part of the issue is that their families are homeless. So we make sure if we can get them to transitional housing, those are some steps. But part of the issue of homelessness at a deeper level is drug and alcohol abuse. And we also have many veterans out there that do not have the resources or the care that they need. And part of Clackamas County has a great veterans program that we need to continue to fund. There are pretty fundamental issues, there are fundamental processes that we can help our families get off of the streets. But it's a matter of making sure that they know somebody cares, like our veterans, we do care about them, and providing these services to them to get them the counseling they need, the support they need, and the continued, I guess, love that they need from our community.
Thank you.
Mark, this first question will be for you, and this is concerning community parks. It has been determined that Jennings Lodge is severely underserved in terms of parks. We've been paying extra taxes for the park district for 26 years and still have no community park. How do you propose to help Jennings Lodge residents get us a community park?
Well, first of all, we're going to have a big budget problem at the state level. So at the state level, there's really not a lot we can do besides funding the state parks. But I do think, I want you to know, I've been an advocate to the Clackamas County region. This is a Clackamas County property jurisdiction. And I think that it's very important that as part of the county commissioner's leadership, that they invest in community parks for us, because as our community is growing, whether we like it or not, and we want to have a say in how our community grows, we need to put pressure on our county commissioners to make sure they invest in our community here, so that there's plenty of land available, but it's going to be letting your community and our community know that these are priorities to us, and that they have to make some movements and some decisions to help us get these parks into our community and dedicate them. So, yes.
Thank you.
And the same question. Yvonne, how do you propose to help Jennings Lodge residents get a community park?
Well, as Mark said, this is something at the state legislature that's probably, we focus more on state issues. But this is my community. I grew up in this area, so I feel like my door is going to be open. No problem is going to be too small. If you need to come and talk to me, my door is going to be open. I do think that we need to work together with our local, our local government organizations, both our cities and our counties, and work together. The more we can partner together, the more effective we're going to be.
Thank you. Carol.
This is to Yvonne. Maintaining the character of our neighborhood with single-family residences on large lots and surrounded by large mature trees is a priority for the residents of Jennings Lodge. How would you work to help us maintain our character as part of planning for the future?
Well, again, I think working together is most important. Looking at grant opportunities, working with our local city and county government is what's going to help maintain this community. And supporting organizations like this. When you have concerned citizens that are active and involved, it's best for not just your own community, but it affects your neighboring communities as well.
Mark, same question. How would you work to help us maintain our character as part of planning for the future?
Well, as part of my work on the Planning Commission, one of the fundamental processes is understanding Senate Bill 100 and the statewide land use goals. There are about 21 of them. And one of them is housing and livability in our community and environment. Jobs are in there, transportation, natural resources are in there also. So I think that the state and Tom McCall kind of developed these standards for us to grow properly. So what I would like to see is, your community to have the opportunity to commit and have a proper input for the sake of the livability and to keep the characteristic of your community the same. I agree, private property rights are there, but I also think, that we have to responsibly grow and grow within the community the way that our community wants to grow. So, beyond greed, I hope that, we're able to make some decisions and have some cooperation with the growth of the community here.
Thank you. Linda?
And to you again, Mark. Excuse me, everyone. The term zombie houses has been used to describe houses left vacant for extended periods of time because banks are slow to process foreclosures. These houses are attractive to drug dealers and other squatters. How would you change Oregon's banking rules to stop delays and speed up the foreclosure process?
Great question, and to me, this is a fundamental question that I've been dealing with both as a realtor on the Government Affairs Committee with Portland and as a realtor at the state level. Working with foreclosures and short sales this last 5 to 7 years, we came across there's properties and homes, neighboring homes that have been abandoned because they were supposed to be foreclosed upon but never were. The problem is that they were used to be judicial foreclosures, now it's non-judicial. At the state level, what I would do is make sure we pass some state statutes that says that any municipality, whether it be the city or the county, has to go in and recover and protect and maintain a vacant property that's been abandoned by the bank, that all those costs and services will be charged against those homes as a lien. And once the bank does finally foreclose, they're going to have to go to the county before they can get the deed, pay off those liens, and reimburse our cities for having to take care of those zombie houses. And we have to give full authority to our municipalities, and I'll be a very big advocate of that because it's long overdue.
And, excuse me, to you, Yvonne, the same question. How would you change Oregon's banking rules to stop delays and speed up the foreclosure process?
As someone who has a zombie house in their neighborhood, it's something that I've had to investigate from the ground up, and I honestly haven't found a lot of information about it. Quite frankly, it's not something that I'm very knowledgeable about, and it's difficult to find information. So I would be open to looking at all kinds of things, but it's not something that I can really address.
Thank you. Carol?
Again, to Yvonne, I'm sorry. There are many used car dealerships in our commercial district on McLaughlin Boulevard, and not enough business types to serve the surrounding neighborhoods. What will you do to help our local economy diversify?
Well, I think it's something that is not just in this area. I think it's a statewide problem that we need to have diversity of businesses. Oregon seems to be pretty strong on service and retail type of businesses. We need to attract, we need to have a business-friendly community. We need to have initiatives that will attract businesses to our state and that bring working wage jobs. That means we need to slow down the number of mandates that are coming from our legislature. We need to be offering incentives to businesses that will bring in jobs.
Thank you.
Mark, same question. What will you do to help our local economy diversify?
Well, I think part of the investment is you have to encourage local municipalities. As you've already known, that I stood up with your organization and testified in front of the county commissioners that the brilliant organization and work that you guys done with the McLaughlin Area Plan implementation team fell on deaf ears with the county commissioners. And to me, the development of McLaughlin and the work that you guys have put into that is something that is revolutionary. But to have the county commissioners put it aside and not consider it a priority has been, I guess, frustrating for me. But as at the state level, I will do what I can to communicate with these commissioners and our cities and the counties to make sure that you have the resources available and the encouragement to develop where you have infrastructure, where you have the population growth here, and have a desperate need for both commercial improvements and for housing. So I know that part of those plans included housing, and we need to consider and have some stronger influence. And I think part of your vote with county commissioners will go a long way to help solve some of that problem too.
Thank you.
For those that don't know what just happened, it was just a solution and Chairman's tongue. That also gives you a chance to catch your breath, Mark. This next question is for you. What do you think the state needs to do to counter the negative effects of climate change?
the state needs to continue the work that we're doing to help mitigate our carbon footprint. Anybody that thinks that we do not make an impact on our environment is very seriously out of the loop. I spent 8 years in Montana, and one of my favorite national parks is Glacier National Park. And when I visited there in the early 80s, mid 80s, they had these beautiful glaciers. And I just saw a report recently that, and I saw the time photography changed, that these glaciers are gone. And by the 2030, Glacier National Park will not have a single glacier. That those were there for thousands of years. And so Oregon needs to continue to be a leader in this world and in the nation to make sure we do what we can to get off of diesel fuels, carbon fuels, find new technologies that will both bring better economies and savings to our families to heat their homes and cool their homes, but also to create better economic drivers, because those new technologies will bring new skills and new jobs, and those what I'm all in favor of.
Yvonne, the same question to you. What do you think the state needs to do to counter the negative effects of climate change?
Well, obviously, I think everyone is concerned about our climate. We need to be good stewards of our earth, and we need to take good care of it. We have passed a lot of different initiatives to help alleviate our carbon footprint. I think what's really important is making sure that those initiatives are not detracting from our economic growth. And if we are going to be passing initiatives such as the low carbon fuel standards, we need to make sure that they are being used, the funds raised from that is actually going back into our economy. Otherwise, it's for naught. We need to make sure that we have a good balance, and we need to focus on providing incentives to businesses to voluntarily reduce their pollution and their emissions.
Thank you. Kara?
Next question to Yvonne. We understand that as a newly elected member of the Oregon State House, you may not get the committee assignments you desire. But if you could choose to be on any legislative committee, which legislative committees would you want to serve on and why?
Well, as a school board member, I think my experience and my passion for education, hands down, I want to be on the education committee. I know what our kids need. I know what our schools are lacking. I've seen firsthand what happens when our state doesn't prioritize education. So that would be my first choice. I'm also very interested in being on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the budget committee. As I said, I've dealt with budgets for a long time. I know how to read them. I know how to understand them. I know how to find waste, and I think that I would be good on that. Probably, if I had a third choice, it'd be transportation, because I feel like our transportation system here in Oregon really needs some help.
Same question, Mark. If you could choose to be on any legislative committee, which legislative committees would you want to serve on and why?
There's two committees I'd love to serve on, and one of them is Housing and Human Services. I'm a realtor, and I've been a property manager. I've helped first-time home buyers, buy homes, and I know the value of folks being able to buy their own home and invest in their community that way. So I'd like to, but as you all know, we're in the middle of a housing crisis. More people are becoming homeless. More people are they have rent insecurity because they're raising rent prices. And the cost of housing has gone way up. So I think my experience both on the Planning Commission as a realtor will be very, very well served on the Housing and Human Services, because I do care about a lot of the social services we want to provide. And second of all, because of my work as a businessman and on the chamber, I'd like to be on the business and the labor committees. And I've been told that with Representative Paula Holvey, I'd be a great addition.
Thank you.
To Mark. According to recent reports, the Public Employee Retirement System, or PERS, is projected to be underfunded by roughly $22 billion. How do you intend to solve the PERS deficit negatively impacting services while still protecting the guaranteed retirement of public employees?
If I solve that question, you guys can vote for me for president, right? Because I've done a heck of a job. That's been a big issue that needs to be solved because we are staring down potential bankruptcy in the state of Oregon. And so when it really is going to come to, and I had a great conversation with some gentlemen this morning, and we have made a promise, and we have a lot of folks that are depending on this retirement security. And so I know that we've gone through and had the different tiers come through. And so we're in the middle of staring down tier 1. And there is going to, if Measure 97 passes, if people think that that's the answer, that is not the answer. And so it's going to take some negotiation. I think it's going to take some heart searching. People are going to have to dig deep, and we're going to have to and kind of unbury some of the costs that we're looking at. Whether we made some promises that were unrealistic or whatever it was, there's some serious decisions we're going to have to make, and I'll be happy to be the one of folks inside the legislature to figure those out for you.
Yvonne, the same question. How do you intend to solve the PERS deficit without negatively impacting services while still protecting the guaranteed retirement of public employees?
Well, a contract is a contract. This contract was set up many years ago, and it has been, we've been facing this problem for many years. This hasn't just happened. I think that's probably one of the most troubling things about the whole PERS situation is rather than budgeting for it, we've looked at ways to get out of this contract. So moving forward, I am in support of the bipartisan effort that both Senator Johnson and Representative Trump have worked on to look at constitutional ways that we can revise PERS. Some of the options have been limiting the salary of PERS retirees, capping it, looking at ways of reevaluating the salary by not counting in vacation time or sick time, by extending the calculation for retirement salary from 3 years to 5 years. So there's some bipartisan effort that's out there that I would be in great support of.
Thank you. Carol?
Okay, this question is to Yvonne. One State of Oregon tool to develop a strong and efficient multi-model transportation system is a program called Connect Oregon, funded by lottery money. Recently, the City of Milwaukee received $1.2 million for the Kronberg Park Trail project at Kellogg Creek. What would you do to gain further investment in northern Clackamas County for multimodal transportation projects through Connect Oregon?
I'm sorry, what would I do to
gain further investment in northern Clackamas County for multimodal transportation projects through Connect Oregon?
Okay. From my understanding, Connect Oregon, it's basically like a grant program. It's not something that I've really studied up on. I've seen that it's lottery dollars that provide bonds for these types of programs, for infrastructure of things like rail and air and pedestrian, bicycle, transportation and infrastructure. The whole focus of that program is the infrastructure. So what would I do to support that? I support it. I think it's a great program. I think we need to be looking at, working with our local community organizations such as this to look at what kind of development you want to have in those avenues, and then helping them with grant processes, because I think it's a great program.
Thank you.
Mark, same question. What would you do to gain further investment in northern Clackamas County for multimodal transportation projects through Connect Oregon?
Well, the first thing I'd do is make sure that Commissioner Paul Salvis is on that commission still, because it is a community-operated organization that are different folks from different communities are on that board. And as each grant application comes through, that those folks are the ones that are mitigating and investigating and approving those. The way the system works, 70% of the funds coming in are granted through the lottery, and then the local municipality has to match with 30%. So that's fantastic. That's a good return for the dollar. But part of the process is making sure the application process is done correctly, that it's one of the 5 modals that are included, which none of those modals can be funded by gas taxes. So I would continue supporting those funds, making sure that the lottery funds are still earmarked for these programs, and making sure you have some good representatives that are going to make sure dollars come into Clackamas County and make some good applications. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is much easier after the first question. Mark, to you first. What should the state be doing to prepare for a major earthquake?
Well, we're starting to prepare. You know, the great shake, or whatever it was, quake shake of October, just a few weeks ago, was preparing and folks, to understand. But part of the issue is that we also have to realize that it is coming. We have, scientific evidence, and we're going to have a great quake. Part of what we can do is make sure we fund our transportation package to make sure that, because what's going to happen, these major quakes are going to come, we're going to lose connections to the west side, because these bridges are going to go down if we don't retrofit them and make sure we do some not geographic, but earthquake-proof, whatever terminology, get them prepared. So I think the transportation package will help with that, but also our plumbing and our water is going to go down too. So we have to prepare in many ways, including the Clackamas County programs, to make sure that we have neighborhood watch folks that are trained, that to go out within 5 to 10 blocks of their neighborhoods to make sure our citizens are safe, and once they secure themselves, then we have to prepare to take care of ourselves for 5 to 10 days, because it's going to take a while to get the disaster relief we're going to need.
Thank you.
Yvonne, the same question. What should the state be doing to prepare for a major earthquake?
Well, I think we need to continue support of the seismic upgrades for all of our schools that we've begun. I think our schools are community centers as much as anything else. So we need to make sure that they're safe and make sure we protect our children. We also need to focus on a transportation package that will support and build up the infrastructure, especially with our freeways and our bridges, so that we can continue connecting. And we also need to support our emergency systems. I know that there's a lot of partnerships that happen between hospitals and other community organizations that we need to continue support. The secondary emergency communication systems of ham radios and things like that that need to be supported. So those are the kind of things I look at.
Thank you. Last question, Carol?
One more after this.
No. This will be the last
one for
question.
me, yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yvonne, how do you feel about the governor's plan to limit gun rights?
I think we need to focus on enforcing the gun laws that we have in place already. My husband was in law enforcement for 12 years. My dad was in law enforcement for 25 years. And the ability to enforce the laws that are already on the books is not supported. Did I just lose my mic? Okay. Sorry. So we need to be able to, and I think we can protect our citizens by enforcing the laws that we have and still maintain our Second Amendment rights.
Thank you.
Same question, Mark. How do you feel about the governor's plan to limit gun rights?
Well, as a gun owner, I am supportive of responsible gun ownership, period. But I do, as somebody that has a business less than a half a mile away from Clackamas Town Center, and having students that I coached in football having to commute from the school to light rail, you know, I when that happened, it was very, you know, concerning for me, because I knew some of the kids that were traversing through those communities when the mall had its incident there. So I do think part of what our responsibility is not necessarily to create more laws, but to actually do more to help our kids and our citizens. I do know that when we keep our kids engaged in high school and keep them engaged with, you know, some community activities and give them hope that they can have a career and have a wonderful life, that you mitigate those issues. And bringing, you know, mental health services to our communities, whether it be in the schools or not, you know, counselors in our schools, we've gone away from a lot of the things that could be, you know, early warning signs to help our citizens. So I'm a big advocate of making sure that we take care of our communities instead of, you know, limiting them.
Thank you. Yeah, keep a hold of that. We'd be ready for some closing remarks. So Mark, you go first this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you so much. In closing, I just hope that I have displayed that I have done a lot for our community, and that I really do care about our community, and I care about the state of Oregon. You know, as I've been married for 32 years, I have 2 sons, one's 27, one's 20, and college education is important to them, but a part of my work, you know, working with students and youth, is college is not for everybody, so I want to make sure all of our kids have an opportunity to make a fantastic living and achieve the American dream. And, you know, I want to continue that work and work with our community down at the state level, where I think I can be very effective for our community, bringing, you know, dedication to our education system, for our aging seniors. I think it's very important we keep looking out for them and bringing the health care and social services to our communities so that we can all achieve the American dream and have a good life. So thank you very much, and thank you for considering your vote for Mark Meek.
Ready?
I don't know what it is.
Well, first of all, I want to say that thank you very much for coming, and thank you for being invested in your community. Thank you for learning about the issues, and most importantly, thank you for the opportunity for me to hear what your concerns are. As a legislature, I promise to keep those doors open and keep my ears open so that I can hear what's important to you. My biggest priority, however, when I get down to the Salem, is to make sure that every decision that we make is focused on how are we going to support our schools and support our kids. How are we going to make sure that they grow up to be contributing members of society, like people like you? How are we going to make sure that every dollar that we spend, every policy that we make, how is that going to affect our kids? We need to support our education system. We need a transportation system that helps people get home to be there with their families. And these types of things are going to help improve our economies. I want to focus on initiatives that will attract businesses to our state. My experience shows that I know how to look at budgets and how to make sure that they're efficient. My experience on the school board proves that I can work across the party lines and make sure that we work together to get things done. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone who provided questions. We didn't get through them all, and so now there will be, in the informal time that follows, that would be an excellent time to ask those questions that weren't asked otherwise, and you may have some separate questions for each one of the candidates. I also want to thank our candidates for coming to our meeting, for answering our questions and hanging out with us this whole evening, because they came for the business part, then they did this part, and they'll stay to answer questions afterward. And if you are elected, whoever is elected, we hope that you will commit to come to a Jennings Lodge Community Planning Organization meeting once or twice a year. What was that, at least? Once a quarter. Once a quarter, okay.